Have you ever heard of the phrase subsidized manhood? No? I knew that because I came up with that term. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what I mean. When we think of subsidies, it's typically for housing or for food, right? Through the SNAP program or WIC. We think about maybe the Obama phones, right? Where the government pays for your phone bill, or the ACP program, which is also the Obama phone program, but the government pays for your electricity, or not electricity, excuse me, your Wi-Fi, internet, and what was the other one? I think it was Medicaid. That's another one. Medical expenses, as well as I think I said internet, but electricity. So, I mean, there may be other subsidies that I don't fucking know about, but insurance. That was another one. They do have that for that too. But they also have subsidized men's manhood. Now, I know you're like, how the fuck, when the fuck, where the fuck, but it's true for the most part, right? Now, hear me out. Men typically see their manhood as being based in whether or not they're able to provide and protect. Now, seeing as though we don't know if that man can fight, if he's willing to fight, because not every man can and or will, and so we're just going to ignore that portion of it and focus solely on the provisional part of it, right? Part of it. Because women were blocked out of the workforce through legislation, right? And they were also not allowed to own properties. Certain people, a lot of men would not rent apartments to them or sell homes to women in particular. You kept them out of these things. So women weren't allowed to go and buy their own homes and have their own homes. They weren't allowed to go out and compete in the world the same way in which men were. We didn't really get the full right to actually work on our own for real, or legislatively until 1930s. And then I think 1970s is when women were allowed to actually have their own bank accounts or credit cards. And so a lot of that had to go through your husband, right? And a lot of women got married so that they could have some level of upward mobility, right, in life. Like, I get to now live on my own, have my own, apartment or whatever, even though it's with a man. And now I gotta have a baby and all this other stuff, but I get to be on my own, right? And a lot of women were okay with that because this is just what they understood as their lot in life. But would they have chosen that had they had different options, other options, if they were able to kind of go to school and not be a wife at 18 or 19 or 20 or whatever age it was, that they were getting married at that time? Because a lot of women were getting married very early. Like right out of high school, because a lot of times it was just like, well, what the hell else are you going to do? Because you can't work, And so, women who were in the 12s or 1900s or the early, I won't say early 18, but like, what would you do, And then we have to also take into consideration that public school was not a thing until 1919, especially here in America. And so if public school wasn't a thing until 1919, what were you really doing? You were at home. You were getting homeschooled. You were learning or going to school half of the day. You couldn't even go to school at the same time that men or boys were at the schools. So a lot of the time, women were kept out of having the same experience as men, having education at the same level as men. You were purposefully and intentionally held back, in society. You were kept beneath the man in almost every way that you could be kept beneath him. And a lot of what you wanted to do or needed to do, you needed him for, right? Like, you needed him to propose to you. You needed him to get a car. You needed him to be able to learn how to drive. You needed a man and his permission in order to get a lot of things done. Men were given the right, legally at this point, to lord over you. It really wasn't until they needed women in the workforce after the World War, because they lost a lot of people, Great Depression, whatever have you. It wasn't until then that they were like, all right, listen, we can't afford to keep these bitches in the house anymore. We gonna have to let them come on out because we need some peoples in these warehouses. And that's where you would find a lot of women working with their husbands sometimes, and oftentimes just in the factories working, but they would have their kids in the factories with them. That's the crazy part. And you can look this shit up because I ain't making it up, okay? I'm just a history major who happened to, form this opinion some years ago while I was studying history. And to know that you were in a factory, okay, with machines or all types of stuff, and you would have your baby there with you, your toddlers, right? Like, that's kind of just wild as hell to me. But these are usually women who, they lost their husbands at war or whatever have you, and they really wanted to get out and work. A lot of women are bored in the house, even though I know men are like, they trivialize being a stay-at-home mom. But it is very boring to only be working with or associating yourself with or dealing with a toddler or a baby all day long. That shit is boring. And they didn't even have TV like that, They didn't even have Instagram or a laptop or an iPad or none of that shit. You got, child, I don't know what the fuck. I mean, what else was you doing in the house all damn day? But, a lot of women did not enjoy that shit, but that was their lot in life. And so it was just like, it is what it is. A lot of women were very excited to be able to get up and get out and go to work because it was something to do. You got to have experience. You got to go out into the world, talk to other people, meet other people. They had very simple lives. That's why it was so much easier for men to go out and have extra families and to cheat and do all these different things because women were basically in the house by themselves. Don't get me wrong, because you got sayings like, oh, that's the milkman's baby, because the milkman would probably be in your motherfucking house fucking on your wife while you wasn't there because shit, she was bored. You always at work. She ain't had shit else to do. And she's simple-minded because she don't know shit. Just saying. Just saying, okay? So, again, when we're talking about the idea or the concept of what makes a woman, it is often associated with being a nurturer, a mother, a lover, a good cook, someone who cleans the house and is very tidy and things of that nature. That's why women are always, looked after or sought after to cook, clean, and fuck, what I'm saying, their husbands and provide babies and things of that nature. That's why men will say, well, women are the nurturers in society. And it's like, that's not true. But that is how men prescribe you. That's how they see you. That is what they want you for, okay? Because of that. And in their minds, they are the providers and the protectors. And so if they are the providers and the protectors, but legislatively speaking, you weren't able to go and be a provider yourself, was it an innate thing? No, it was not. It was created by other men through the legislative process. They said this person could not go and get a job legally. There were ramifications for that. And unless you were working for like your family business or, a friend's business or something, you did not work as a woman and you weren't allowed to. So, and don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to the rule for most rules, because poor people for the most part had to work, black women for the most part had to work, but a lot of them found it very hard to actually go and get jobs that were outside of working in somebody else's home as their nanny, their maid, or whatever have you, and they would have to take much lower wages than that of a man, right, or someone who was, for the most part, legislatively allowed to go out and to work. And so the whole premise of you being the man, the leader, the person who gets to make all the decisions, if that's predicated on, you having the right to go and work because I was just forbade from doing so, right? Or me being able to go and live on my own, with a man in an apartment away from my parents, because a lot of renters or landlords would not rent to women. That is well known. Like, it did not become a thing until after the 60s. God damn it, the 60s. Like, you could possibly go and get a rooming house or live in a rooming house that accepted women or, vagabonds for the most part. but and the vagabond is kind of like a wanderer of sorts, somebody who doesn't have like a home like of their own. But yeah, like, you know, you could probably get like a rooming house, but you were hard pressed to go and get your own apartment. And even if you did, a lot of times you suffered because men saw that as somebody who was easy, you know, like you being an independent woman. A lot of men did not like that, and they were threatened by that, and they would try to remind you of exactly just how powerless you were, you know, in their presence, right? And so again, like it wasn't easy being a woman, but a lot of that had to do with the fact that they had laws to back up their social perception of who you are, right? Or their personal and or religious perceptions of who you are. And so because of that, they got to kind of create this identity where, yeah, I do need a man. You know, if I don't have a man, I can't do this, I can't do that. I can't, you know, there was all these things that just were in the way if you did not have a man. And so a man was such a huge deal, and you needed your husband, right? You needed a man in order to one, to look like a valuable person in society as a woman. You needed a man to, you know, have a credit card, right? Or to have money coming in, like stable, you know? So a lot of what we came to understand about manhood was forced upon us through legislation, not because of our innate abilities or capabilities. It had nothing to do with that. Because if it was, I mean, just think about it, right? You don't have to tell tigers to go hunt. You don't have to tell them to go and build a fort nest. I don't know what the fuck tigers sleep and create for themselves, but I'm just saying, you don't have to teach them how to be that. You don't have to create laws and do those things for them. They figure it out. The lioness doesn't have to be told how to be a lioness. She just is. Now, if you bring it back to humans, we don't have to tell each other when to go to sleep. We don't have to tell each other when to go shit. We don't have to tell each other when to go eat. Your stomach will let you know, and then you will do what you need to do to make that happen. So the fact that the government had to create laws that kept women out of the workforce, right? Forbade them from owning property, forbade them for being able to really have a fair access to resources the same way as men, shows you that it was not an innate thing. You being the leader or at the helm was not innate. It's not because you were born this way and this was your God-given right, because you can't take away somebody's God-given right in that kind of way unless they accept it, you know. But men had to create laws for this. Think about that. Just think about that. So the reality is that we are equals for the most part, because as we see now, women are working, they are firefighters, they are police officers, they are longshoremen, they are construction workers, they are in the army, right? I mean, even if we take a step back, right, for just a second and think about Joan of Arc or Mulan, right, which were all based on true stories. Because there were plenty of women back in the day who disguised themselves as men to go and fight in the war. You can look these things up, okay? Even if we're not talking about Mulan, right? There were women, I mean, because it is based on a true story, but there were women in other countries elsewhere who wanted to fight, who felt capable, who wanted to be a part of that legacy or part of history in that kind of way. Now, whether or not they were mentioned as a woman or mentioned as a man as opposed to a woman, they didn't care. You know, if my name was Leandra, but I got to tell you that I'm Leandre Smith, and I get to go off, and Leandra's one of my favorite people, but anyway, I get to go off and I get to go to war. I know that I'm Leandre, right? I know that was me, you know, or at the very least, my family will know, right? Like, they know they named me Leandra, and it was only one fucking Leandre that showed up, you know. So again, like, when we're thinking of manhood and, you know, womanhood, right, those things were forced on you. Because here today in society, we see that women are choosing not to have children, right? And not because, oh, I can't afford them or whatever have you. I don't want to be a mother. I don't really like the idea of having to care for someone long term all the time. I kind of like the idea of doing me for the rest of my life, right? And that's okay. Because again, not every woman is a good mother. We also see plenty of evidence of that by people who have to grow up learning how to, love themselves and recuperate from their childhoods because their parents were just shitty. We plenty of people had shitty moms. I know I had one. So I'm just saying, right? Like, there are a lot of women who just did not fit the bill when it came to motherhood, but they had to perform that. They had to pretend like, oh yeah, I'll be a good mom, I'll da da da. You had to perform this idea of femininity or womanness so that you can be valuable to a man, so that you can get those resources, so you can get the hell out of your parents' house. Whatever was your goal was, you got you a man so you could do X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times you didn't get the man because you were in love with him. You got the man because you were in love with your freedom. You were in love with the possibility of your future. You just wanted to get the fuck on. It is what it is. A lot of women did. That's why you see a lot of these 50-year marriages, because when they first met, they weren't in love to begin with. It was just because a means to an end, to be very honest with you. So when we are talking again, and go back to this, about men's manhood, it was 100% subsidized by the government. They kept them in power. They kept them at the helm. They kept them, with the ability to obtain the resources and to hoard the resources up until the 1930s. And after that, men have kind of been just scrambling to find some sort of value in women's lives. And fast forward to today, we have a lot of men whining about how, oh, women are so masculine and women are, no longer feminine. They don't even know how to cook, and they don't even know how to da da da. And it's just like, but that's not a woman's job. It's not. It's not even your job to just be the provider and the fucking protector. Again, a lot of y'all can't fucking fight. Okay. If you can't fight, you're not a fucking protector. Do you get that? Because if you get your ass beat, who the fuck is protecting me now? Who? I got to call the police and I got to go find cover, nigga. So I don't understand who's protected me if your ass is beat up on the ground, sir. But I'm just saying, yeah, it's been subsidized, That's just the reality of it. I'm not going to say that women's motherhood has been subsidized, right? Because again, they were kept out of the workforce and weren't allowed to work, right? And then on top of that, if there are no resources available to help women while they are trying to also work and take care of these kids, then you will need the government. The government helps to subsidize you as an individual, right? To sustain whatever situation a man helped create for you, because you cannot be a single mother without a man willingly making you a single mother. That's another conversation we're going to have, but I'm going to end it here. If you like what I've had to say today, please leave me a message. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you disagree, I want to hear it. If you agree, I want to hear it. I don't care what you have to say. I just want to hear your thoughts. Know what you're saying, know what you're thinking, know what you're feeling. I want to know all of it. So share my video, because I know y'all don't like what I'm not gonna like what I had to say, but I'm just being honest, and I'm also encouraging us to rethink and relook at how we look at manhood and womanhood, and to remove the idea of whether or not you can provide, whether or not you are a mother, or whether or not you are all these different things, and allow people to just be people. There are some men who are great providers, but there are also women who are great providers. My sister is a great provider. Her husband just happens to make more money, but at the same time, she's always been amazing, a wonderful provider for herself. At the very least, she's always been on top of her bills, all types of things. I'm just going to stop there. I know a lot of women who are great providers, right? My old boss, just so many others who just do well for themselves, well for their children. Same for men. But then there are a lot of men that I know that just can never figure it out. I feel like we know more men who live with women in their apartments for free, not working, okay, than we do women who are living with a man and being taken care of, and the man is paying for everything. Like, we know more men in that situation than we do women. But again, like I said, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them below. Thank you for listening, and bye. Okay. Bye.